Bow with me. Lord Jesus, we thank you for today. God, thanks for just waking us up this morning and just blessing us with your presence today. We ask that you give us the mind and spirit to lead this county as decisions are made. God, we ask that you surround us in everything that we do and be with our decisions. Pray all these things in your son's name. Amen.
Amen. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll call Morris County Fiscal Court to order September 3rd, 2019. I think first on the agenda is Brittany, Parks Director. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, I know that you all have seen the naming rights agreement that has been sent out. I just want to kind of touch on a couple of things very briefly. We are going to kind of keep our donor anonymous at this point, so if you do have any questions or any concerns that we need to address, just please make sure that we are leaving names out of this completely. So for the Miracle League facilities, we did have an estimate of about $1 million that we needed to raise. As part of that campaign, I had started looking to donors and offering naming rights and sponsorships for portions of that facility. I have secured a donor in the amount of $400,000 for naming rights to both the field and the playground, which will put us pretty close to halfway to our goal, which was unbelievable. I'm still kind of on my high over this. I'm really excited about this donation. So you all have seen the naming rights agreement that's come in. The county attorney did draft this agreement, so he is well aware of everything that's included in the agreement. If anybody has any questions or concerns, I don't think any have come in before now, but I just wanted to kind of present that before we moved on to where we're at now.
Has anybody got any questions for the agreement? Can you kind of give us a brief overview of funding for the parks moving forward?
Absolutely. So with specific to the Miracle League, this will put us, like I said, close to halfway to our estimated goal. Can you pull up that graphic? I have started working with an engineer who is kind of donating his time to give us kind of a rough visual. This is very, very initial of how we could potentially lay out these facilities on the property that was identified by the road department to be our best option. So the green there at the beginning would be parking. And just so you know where we're looking at here, this is right off of 68. The facility that you see there is the hair salon there. So this will be up at the beginning of the park. That would give us road frontage on 68 and then also great access there at the entrance to the park as well. So it's going to be a very visible space within the park to be able to put these facilities. The road department did identify this as our best option to put this because we do already have utilities and electric and everything run to this part of the property. So it would make it much easier to put everything in on this space. So when we looked at this, you'll see parking, you'll see concessions, the field, and in the playground area as well. These are very, very rough initial estimates and just one option of how we could potentially lay these out. We're still going to be working on how many parking spaces are actually needed and things like that, but this just kind of gives us an initial overview of how things could be laid out on that property. So when we look at funding, we are going to be doing a variety of different things. We do have some smaller scale things going, such as we just finished the shoe drive. We have the t-shirts and the bracelets for sale and some smaller things like that. Our next big fundraiser that we're going to be working on will be called the Night of Miracles. We are looking at that for the end of February. That will be in Paducah. I believe we have identified Walker Hall as our best option for that. And that will be a very large-scale black tie, red carpet type event that will be marketed to all of Western Kentucky. We have some really large auction items that will be coming in. It will be a catered meal, a bar. We will have a silent auction going on and then a live auction as well. And we have been in talks with an auctioneer he just won some kind of national award for auctioning, I guess. I'm not really sure on the title of that, but he's going to be hopefully coming in to work with us on that event. We will be selling tables instead of individual seats, so we're hoping to get some large companies to come in and sponsor these tables for that event. This should be a very large fundraising event, and we've been talking to Caleb Lee, that was on The Voice, about getting him to come in and play, have live music and things like that at this event as well. We have been also sending out sponsorship packets to businesses across the area. We have hit, I think, every county in Western Kentucky, sending out these initial sponsorship packets that basically just tell what we're doing, how we're going to do it, how people can get involved. And then in about another week, we're going to start our kind of follow-up efforts from that. So we have tracked everybody that we've sent out a packet to, and then we'll be making email or phone or both contact to follow up with all of these businesses. But we have already started to get some response from these packets that we're sending out. So definitely some promising initial conversations have started to happen from that. So one thing I do want to kind of clarify is how this kind of works. So we have Marshall County Parks Incorporated, which is our 501c3, and that is just another aspect of the park itself. It allows us to fundraise for the park. It allows donors to contribute to the park, but it is still the park. So I want to make that very clear, because I know there has been some confusion and some kind of ridiculousness on social media talking about that. So I wanted to make sure that we took this opportunity to clarify that I am not fundraising for a nonprofit, so to speak, while I'm on county time. I am actually fundraising for the park that I am the director of. Therefore, it is very much within my duties in my job to be able to do this. So the Miracle League will be managed by the park. It is a function of the park. We are just simply fundraising through our 501c3 to help bring these facilities to the park. So I'm hoping that will kind of clarify any confusion that is out there about that. More than happy to continue to answer questions about that as I have in the past, but just to throw that out there one more time and hopefully kind of clear things up on that. We are still doing some park sponsorships as well. We do still have some of those coming in. And then we're getting ready to start our Christmas light sponsorships. We're going to be doing that a little bit differently this year as well. So we will be able to bring in some additional sponsorship money through the Christmas lights. And that is totally separate from the donations that come in from the Christmas lights. Any questions or anything about the park? Okay.
No.
We do also have.
Let me ask a question.
Go ahead.
So the entrance, you won't have an entrance off of the main
We
park
are still
entrance, right?
looking at that.
Okay.
That is a possibility.
This is just a-
We are looking at, I believe the land makeup on that side may or may not be good for parking and a drive. So once we kind of dig in a little bit more, we'll be able to find that out for sure. But the parking area was definitely going to be best up by the road. So that kind of cuts in a little bit on how we can lay that out. But this is definitely just an initial, very, very rough draft.
Being far away from the concessions, are you gonna have?
We're going to
will they
have a
their own
separate concessions up here,
Okay.
yeah. We sure will.
Okay.
One other thing I did want to mention is we do have the Boo Bash coming up. It's the first year that we've ever done anything like this at the park. That is the weekend before Halloween. And I'm just going to throw this out there. This is how you end up with all of these ridiculous freeze frames of yourself on YouTube. Just throwing that out there.
Why don't you just continue
Okay.
to smile? Yeah. Just sit there and smile.
Okay, Boo Bash. Sorry, just totally sidetracked
Do it
me for a
again.
minute. Boo
Say
Bash,
Boo Bash.
weekend before Halloween. It's totally free for everybody to come out and participate, and we are still looking for businesses, groups, churches to come out and hand out candy. It's basically just a very large-scale trunk or treat that we're doing for the community. We're going to have a costume contest. We're working on some live music and things like that. But basically what it is businesses, churches, groups will come out and decorate their area a table or a pop-up tent, however they want to do that, and hand out candy. They can have signage up, but there's no cost for them to participate, and there's no cost for kiddos in the community to come out and participate as well. We'll have the stage set up and let all the kids that are dressed up kind of parade across the stage and be announced as they come across. So we're really excited. We've had several that have committed to participate so far, and we're still looking for more. So that's kind of our next big, just park-related thing outside of the Miracle League that we've got going.
Good. All right.
Okay.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you so much.
Is there a 5K associated with that too?
There's not. I believe the Marsh County High School soccer boosters are planning a Halloween-themed 5K.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, yeah. I met with her this past week. They've got their initial application turned in to me, but it's not affiliated with the Boo Bash. Totally separate. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Brittany. We'll move on under guest, Brian Skinner with Ross Sinclair. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Judge. Good morning, everyone. Let me pass out a couple little handouts here. Okay, again, I'm Brian Skinner. I believe you may remember me, been here a few times talking about some bonds with Ross Sinclair and Associates, your municipal, AKA financial advisor. The first pages I've given to you there are slides showing interest rates. That first one is just a 20-year history on a generic 20-year obligation bond. So kind of where interest rates have been, not necessarily for Marshall County or anyone in particular, just an average across the country. I got this from Bloomberg Analytics. They're, the terminal, Michael Bloomberg, you heard of him. So they aggregate all the bond sales from across the country, get an average, and this is basically it. So as you can see, over the past 20 years, we aren't exactly at the absolute bottom. We hit that in 2016. However, we are very close to the lowest rates have been in the past 20 years. You can see it's been a pretty steady decline with a few spikes there. You see in 08, I'm sure everybody remembers 08 had quite a bit of turmoil in the markets, shot up there. And there's been a few times where it's bounced back and forth. But right now, we've been on a pretty steady decline the past few months. The next page just zooms in on the past year. So you can tell there's a little thing on the top left says we hit a high on October 11th, 2018 of 4.37%, and that'd be the rate on a 20-year loan. And then the low is on 8/29/19, which I believe was last Thursday, of 2.97. So we're more than a full percentage point lower than where we were a year ago. That's kind of those pages, just to give a little bit of context as to kind of why we're here talking. Obviously, before we've passed an ordinance for some bonds for Southwest One, a couple other items. So now we're kind of here to discuss other projects you may have and the possibility of borrowing a little bit more money, not just because rates are low, but because, the projects are needed. But kind of if you're going to issue bonds, and I'm not telling you should always issue bonds if you got money, that makes sense too. But if you're going to, now makes sense with as low as interest rates are. So, kind of what we're proposing is to look through this, determine what projects you may want to use financing for, and go ahead and start the process of that. So the next page, or the next handout, I will go ahead and apologize. I made some changes over the weekend and printed them at home, so print quality is not as good on these pages as it was the others from the office. So it kind of goes through, and starting with the $7 million debt service project. So if you had $7 million worth of projects on that page number 1, I laid out what our estimates would be for a 20-year deal, 25-year deal, and 30-year deal. And at the bottom, I put what our estimated net interest cost is. You notice this is actually a little bit lower than that page before. That's because you guys have a pretty good bond rating. I think you would trade a little bit better than that average score on the others. That's just the metrics that we were showing. So it's just kind of breaks it down. The net interest cost, which is your average interest rate, it includes the underwriter's discount. For a 20-year deal on $7 million would be about 2.74%, 2.9% for a 25-year deal, and just over 3% for a 30-year deal. Now, we're in a pretty unique interest rate environment. I'll try not to get in the weeds too much, but you may have heard on CNBC where we've got an inverted yield curve, or it's a very flat yield curve at least. So normally, year one is here, interest rates are very low. You're not getting very much, say, on a money market fund. It's only 1 year. And 30-year rates, like for your mortgage, are up, say, at 5%. You've got a pretty steep incline there. Well, right now, short term, it's more flat. Say short-term rates are 2%, and long-term rates are only, like I have on here, 3%. So it doesn't cost you as much to go out in further term as it used to. Used to be you would pay a penalty to borrow longer. So now it's a bit more advantageous to use that extra term on there. Just try not to confuse too much. But if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt. But that's pretty much what I've got. The next few pages are just, do $6 million worth of project, just to give you an idea, budget-wise, where you would be on debt service, the difference between the terms. As you can see at the bottom, that net interest cost is the same for every term. It doesn't cost more to borrow more. Now, if we got over $10 million, those would go up a little bit. There's something called bank qualification where over $10 million in a year, banks can't hold it and deduct their interest. So, these interest rates are good probably up until 10 million. Over that, you would increase it 10 or 15 basis points right now. So that's kind of the baseline. You do get a little slight benefit by borrowing more just because there's a few fixed costs, your bond rating and bank rating, but not enough to really base a decision on. So open the floor to questions or...
Can you talk a little bit about the DLG
The timing,
process?
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So basically right now, we started a few months ago doing a project. I believe we passed an ordinance for $3.5 million here. And we went through a DLG process where you have to advertise. It was a bit cumbersome with that. They had some turnover at DLG, so that process took a little longer even than normal. But basically what we would need to do if we were to borrow more than that is go back through that process. I was at a conference last week and talked to them, and there's no real way to just increase that amount. We have to start over and do the advertising again, which is no big deal, but it will take some time. So say we were to say go ahead with whatever amount today and resubmit to DLG. It would take probably about a week to get that to get that date set with DLG. Now they'll tell us they can do it tomorrow, but it'll take a little while to sort out, when we can get the advertisement to the local newspaper. Then you've got to wait 30 days from there, so another 4 weeks or so before we can have that debt hearing. They issue the recommended order, say, in 3 weeks, and then we can close on the bonds, money in hand, in 2 to 3 weeks. So to kind of break that down, our interest rate we could probably lock after about 8 weeks. And then from that time is when we have that competitive bond sale, when we lock in interest rates. And then 2 to 3 weeks after that, depending on schedules of when we can get documents signed, we would have money in the bank in 10 to 11 weeks. And that is a fairly aggressive time frame, but that's about what it should take. So,
cost-wise,
yes.
let's say that we're already here on the 3.4, 3.5, and we know that's a quick process at this point. It's already approved.
Sure.
What are the costs of doing that, going ahead and saying move forward and doing the whatever amount if we did go above that on a separate deal? I mean, cost-wise, is it going to be
You
worse than?
It wouldn't necessarily be that much worse. You would have to pay your bond rating fee twice, which is, say it's $12,000, you have to pay that twice. A bank fee is probably $3,500 you pay twice. Now, you know, my fee and bond counsel's fee, the other fees are just a factor of how much you borrow. So that two issues wouldn't matter to me or to anyone else.
Yeah. So,
The only, yeah, go ahead.
and then the other difference is you are, with the 3.4, if we had any, and I know you can't see into the future, but if you thought, okay, this is the low,
Yeah,
wouldn't you'd be better off going ahead and do the 3.4
if
so
you,
that you're not putting that 3.4 at risk
Absolutely.
of a higher rate but what's your,
yeah, so.
what would you tell?
Yeah, so both, you know, I would have told you last month when I was here that interest rates probably can't go much lower.
Right.
And they've been consistently lower. Now, we're approaching that historic low,
Yeah.
for sure. So, you know, I hope rates keep going down, but I don't know that they will. You know, I hope they stay where they're at for the next year or so through the election is what I'm hoping for. Obviously, I can't predict that. But yeah, that would make some sense, to do that. Now, you know,
And it wouldn't take that long for a, you know, a 10 basis points increase over that time. It wouldn't have been worth the 12,000
correct.
more or whatever it is,
Yeah.
15,000.
Yeah.
We'd have wiped that out.
yeah, that makes sense.
But you're playing the
Yeah, you're also
playing the
you know,
market, as do we.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interest rate risk no matter what you
Yeah.
do. You know, the other thing is, you know, when do you need that 3.4 million now, versus, you know, once you start that, you start paying interest on it. Of course, the interest rate's low, and we'll say short-term investment rates are pretty high relatively. So, say you can borrow the money at 30 years for 3%, you might be able to invest that in a CD or something for 2% or more. So you're mitigating a little bit of that risk there also. So.
Yeah.
One thing's for sure, we have several projects.
Right.
When you start looking at our infrastructure, there's definitely projects sitting there. I know just a few, we've got the line extension, the southwest one that we are currently dealing with. We've got both water and sewer projects that are there. Jonathan Creek, I know we had a meeting last week with some of their board members. They've got a total of $10 million projects within their district. So there's definitely not a shortage of infrastructure projects in this county. I know one thing that I liked about the fact that these rates are low is that if there's ever a time to borrow, now's the time to borrow. When these rates are low, if you look back on your 20-year history, you know, you get up beyond 3 and 4%. That starts putting us in a position where, you know, projects are definitely going to have to be chosen based off of those rates. And, you know, some of these projects is costing us more money because we're not fixing the problem. Just talking this morning with Brian, since I've been in office, we've subsidized 911 $2 million. That's a lot of money. And fixing a problem, I think, is what we should be looking at. I know folks in Jonathan Creek Water District area have been asking for, you know, support, and I know y'all know that PSC governs over these water districts. They just simply do not have the debt service capability. They can't fund their projects because they don't have the monies to pay the debt service. So we definitely don't have a shortage of projects.
Yeah, and I don't think you don't borrow money, obviously, just because
Right.
the rate is great right now, but when you have projects out there that truly need to be done, then this is the time to consider it. I just, I worry about it concerns me to throw this 3.4 out another 10 to 11 weeks with that potential rate increase. Now, I mean, it could turn out where it goes lower and it ended up hurting us in the long run, I guess, but I just can't imagine. I cannot imagine.
Yeah,
How
they're
much
very low
lower?
right now.
Could you talk to us too, if you don't care about, I know we've talked about it, but for the public anyway, that debt hearing and how it went, and as far as our rating is concerned,
sure.
bond rating,
Sure, yes. The debt hearing went very well. You guys, relative to pretty much every county in the state, have very low debt ratio. So there's, we go with a lot of counties, and we're close on that debt. You can borrow 2% of your total assessed value. You guys are very, very, you had $50 million worth, $49 million worth of capacity when we went. So you're nowhere near your debt capacity. Now, I will say debt capacity doesn't mean you can afford that, but you're well within your limits on that. The bond rating went very well, or bond call. We had a conference call, went very well. I believe it was received very well. We have not received the official rating. We're waiting to get that. Erica has helped with some good information lately that Moody's has been requesting. But we don't want to have them release the rating, because once they release the rating, they also release an invoice that needs to be paid. So we want to wait until we have a bond sale set to pay that invoice out of, instead of saddling the county with an extra, $10,000, $12,000 bill on something like that. So, your rating right now is at an A+, which is very, very good. Most counties in the state don't have a rating. That's, a few different reasons. They may not have a lot of borrowing, but a lot of the reason is, they wouldn't be able to achieve a good rating. And if you're not going to be able to achieve a rating like that, it's best to not pay the money and borrow money alternatively. But it's a very good rating, should yield, like I said, very good interest rates. There's not a lot of what we call general obligation debt in the state of Kentucky, and it's believe it or not, highly desired for some of these big bond firms that want to buy those. So, command pretty good rates.
Yeah, the one of the debt officers, when he looked at our profile at the debt hearing, had said that it was probably one of the best he's seen in the state.
Yeah, and we try to push for different rules and things for when counties are not that close, that if you borrow less than $500,000, you don't really have to go through this debt hearing. We think it should be a factor of what your capacity, and it should be a shorter time frame, but it's not. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so something like this, when we go to one like this, it's once they start the meeting, it's a 2-minute meeting where they say, "Oh, yes, you're below it. No one's here to contest it. No one contested your ordinance readings." So it's a good thing to go here that you're in great shape, but sometimes the process is a bit cumbersome.
And to make sure I understand, if the court were to give permission to move forward with DLG, does that first step, getting the debt hearing started?
Yeah, right. So the debt hearing is going to be what takes us the longest amount of time here. We've already got the ratings set. We may have to have another ratings call if we increase the par amount. Probably not. We'll have to alert them and let them know that the borrowing amount changed. That'll adjust their report. But if we got the DLG process started, that would, start the clock. We'd need 2 readings of an ordinance, but you guys could do that almost at your leisure. We'd like those done before the debt hearing. It makes it easier if we can have a signed copy of the ordinance there. But the first part is really submitting that form to DLG and getting them to schedule a debt hearing and getting that advertised.
Is there a point in time, or at what point in time in that process would like Monty's concern with the current $3.5 million that we've already been approved through DLG, does that kind of, we now do not have that, we start this process
No,
over?
you would, I guess technically, you could still issue, that wouldn't void that past one. When we started a new one, we probably just keep it clean and not try to combine the two. We'd probably just do whatever amount you wanted full, but that wouldn't, make that other one null and void or anything. We could still, proceed with that.
Okay.
So today, all you'd be looking for is, to say, go forward with the DLG meeting, increasing it a certain amount. Is that that's what we're saying, right?
Yeah,
But because we don't need to, do you need to know, when do we need to tell you whether we're gonna do the
Right.
the
So.
3.4 versus,
Right, so, what we would want to, all we'd really want to make sure is that we passed enough to get through DLG. So if you're going to do $6 million worth of it, we would want to do 6.5 now, and we could always reduce it. We would want to know today and put in that DLG application the maximum that you think logically that you may borrow. We can always dial that down, when we go through the ordinance process.
but would that be the difference? Would you actually be sending
We
an
would-
approval for the difference between 6 and the 3.5 that's
I'm not-
already?
I would probably give DLG a call and ask which way they want to do it.
Okay.
On the
Either way.
surface, I think we would, to make it cleaner, do the full amount, whatever we think we would, and kind of just not necessarily forget about the old approval, but not, basically not use it. That way, when we do the transcript and everything, we don't have multiple sets of documents and ordinances. I mean, we could do that if they come back and ask for that. But today, I would go ahead to be safe and go with the higher number. And if DLG says, if the difference is between the 3.5 million we did before and 7 million, we just do another $3.5 million application. It's kind of whatever's going to make them happy and keep the process moving.
we definitely have the line extension for Southwest 1. You've got, there's an opportunity for a water project for Johnson Creek with USDB or CDBG grant to where there's a matching million. So we can try to maximize, if we're going to do $1 million project for Johnson Creek, try to put in for a CDBG for another $1 million. That's basically up to $1 million. It doesn't guarantee that we'll get $1 million,
Right.
but it's up to $1 million. There's a sewer project to get under the interstate in Draftonville, and then the 911 upfit. There's $7 million right there. If it's just to go through and have the DLG start that process, the debt service hearing, if you were saying do just a little bit more.
Yeah, I would do
7.3.
7.3 or something like that, just to, in case a bid comes in different, or to adjust for, fee, underwriter's discount and fees and things like that. Yeah, I would suggest, if you're doing 7, do 7 point, not to exceed 7.3 million or something like that.
And that can adjust
Yeah, you can adjust
later if you
down
want
as
to,
much as you
Just
want.
like the 3.5 that we have right now.
Right, yeah, we could adjust down as much as you wanted.
So I guess just logistically, we could say, move forward with that. We're not committing, so that everybody understands, to borrow that and use all that. That's just we know we have a borrowing capacity of 50. We're just saying this would be our max, and we still have to agree on what that is. And then could we just have a special called meeting on specific to
We could.
projects, so that we're focused solely on that and what it would cost and what it would do to our budget?
Yep, we can do that.
I think that'd be good, to keep everything else aside from that and just figure out what's the best thing for us to do. Is it best to be able to borrow that, or use some funds that we have, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Sure.
Well, I'll move then that we move forward with the DLG approval for no more than 7.3 million total, inclusive of the current 3.5 already approved.
Right.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. How soon, I know we're talking about DLG, but how soon do you think that we should be hearing from them? Because
I'll give him a call today and get bond counsel started on the application, which, should be pulling up the old one and changing the numbers, basically. So, I talked to someone there, and they said if we were to do this, they would make sure they put it on the fast track and got to it. But
Sure,
I would think they would be able to schedule in the next couple days.
sure. And
And then, but we will call whoever here you tell us to make sure we coordinate with the newspaper on, because there's a little bit of a, lead time there. We need to get it published in the newspaper and things. So make sure. You probably need 2 readings of a new ordinance, or I'm not sure if you can amend it or not. Probably 2 readings of a new ordinance, which we can have bond counsel draft. I guess it'd be mostly just changing the amounts. But we can, like I said, that's not as urgent as starting the DLG process, but we would need that.
Yeah.
And they advertise those again, just like we did before.
the project that would be priority would be the line extension, the southwest one, just because, as Chad came and presented last court meeting, that process, starting that procurement process, is going to take, I'd say, a month and a half, maybe around the 2-month mark. So we're definitely in that window. The groundbreaking is this week for United, for the construction of their facility. But the actual line extension, that procurement process has yet to start, so. I think that timeline matches up.
Yeah, so we don't want to put you, if we were to wait and do it all at once, we don't want to put you in a tough
Yeah.
spot. But if we're expecting funds in 10 to 11 weeks,
Yeah.
procurement's done in a month and a half, and net 30 on your bill, something like that, you should be fine.
Right. All right. Anything else for Brian?
Any questions?
All right.
I'll keep working to try to keep these rates low.
Please,
Appreciate it, Brian.
do all you can.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to old business. Approve the minutes, August 20th meeting and August 20th public hearing and August 26th special call meeting.
So move.
Second.
I have one item on the 26th.
Yeah.
Special called. In the budget line, I'll have it pulled up now, let's see. I think it should say in there also something about collection. We mentioned in there, conditional upon passing of the ordinance and collection of those fees. Remember what I'm talking about? As far as that the budget is pending both of those.
You're talking item B under old business,
Where?
August 26th.
No, B or D?
B,
No, D.
D.
Yeah. The passing, I think, was conditional upon the ordinance and the collection of those. Because we talked about that the budget does not go into place until collection of fees.
Yes, I think it was.
So it should have something added to that with a subject to collection.
After where it says ordinance number 2019-09 and the collection of fees, right?
Yeah, conditional on the passing of the ordinance and collection of said fees. amend that, then I'll second it. Do we need a new motion with?
Let's see. Justin, do you want to remove your
I'll
motion?
withdraw my motion and I'll move that we approve it with that amendment.
Okay, second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Let's see. We'll go on the host agreement under old business. You should have a copy of the host agreement. Is there any questions on it? I know there was some discussion as far as under the host fee, 501, would be the second bullet point, 5.25% of gross receipts of landfill for all solid waste originating outside the county. The max on that could be 6.25%. There was discussion as far as the 6.25%. Do we want to put that in at 6.25%? I don't know. Do you got the, what, 1%? Total, do you got those copies of those? I think those are the last year's, if you just want to add those up to 1% on that, just so, that way they know what 1% would be. I had talked, I think you got a copy of the one that had the recommendation. I think it was 303. Say it again. Well, each one, those are quarterly. Yeah, so you're going to get quarterly totals.
$30,235.
So about 30,000. That lets you know what 1% would be. And then if you look at, you should have a copy. There's obviously been multiple drafts here, but you should have a copy of the May 20th, 2019 draft. It's got the added 3.3 section. That section was removed by the 109 board. And that was the section that discussed beginning the effective date, the refuse district shall deliver all solid waste collected by the refuse district to the landfill for disposal. But that was taken out. The reason why that was put in there is if all the trash is collected in the county, and the way this works is the fee that the county has in place, the current ordinance that the county has in place has a 2% fee. Obviously, these fees are being increased from 5% for in-county, and as this reads, currently 5.25% of gross receipts outside of the county. That can go up to 6.25%. But Section 303 that was added and then taken off. Beginning the effective date, the refuse district shall deliver all solid waste collected by the refuse district to the landfill for disposal. If all the trash is taken to the landfill, we capture that fee, which in turn is revenue. Right now at 2%, I want to say it's anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000 annually. So if trash that is collected in county is taken out of county or not taken to the landfill, then the county is actually not collecting that gross receipt, the percentage on that gross receipt. Now, the reason why, and correct me if I'm wrong, the reason why it was taken out is because of an agreement that they thought was still current, or they say is still current, and they were wanting to do an interlocal agreement. But I question the agreement because we've yet to get, have we gotten any minutes, Corey, from the district? We don't believe that the board approved that agreement with the landfill in Graves County. The agreement that we have is signed by the supervisor and not the chairman of the board. Do you want to talk on that agreement, Jason?
Well, yeah, I mean, what you said, plus the fact that in the interim, we've had that bid process that's taken place. So
Yes.
I think that kind of supersedes whatever may have taken place in the past.
Yeah, the bid, they bid that, let me get my dates here. We're in September. It was earlier this year, correct? They bid that.
Yeah, I believe it was 19 when they bid it. Yeah.
And there was only one, I think Waste Path was the only one that bid it. So I believe.
What do you mean, the bid supersedes the agreement? Is that
Well-
what you said?
Yeah, well, basically is that they were operating, they've been operating without a host agreement for a while.
Yeah.
And so by statute, they've gone through the correct procedures to get that new agreement in place. And if you couple what Judge said about it not being voted on by the board, plus this new agreement having been negotiated through the bid process, I think that kind of puts that old agreement with that Graves County facility to the wayside.
So you're not concerned that that is not in there then, is what you're saying?
I'm not. I mean, Jason's the attorney, but this is a 2012 agreement. And the reason why this is brought up is because this section, there's a minimum of 200 tons per month that are leaving the county. And this agreement is an annual renew of the agreement. They felt that, they felt that this agreement was a standing agreement. In their application for Waste Path to expand, the Waste Management Coordinator has to show an alternate location to take trash in case, for some reason, Waste Path can't accept the trash. But there are alternatives. There's the same landfill that they can go to, and I believe there's one in McCracken County that they can go to as well, if I'm not mistaken. But the board felt that this agreement was binding to actually go into an interlocal agreement, when actually they don't have to do that. The county's interest is we want to capture that fee on all waste in county at the landfill. So for the county's position, that's where we get funds to fulfill the statutory requirement of putting funds on our roads, clean up our right-of-ways, and having a hazmat response to the landfill if something were to happen. So when you look at it from a business decision, the county, we're not that's monies that's leaving the counties. capturing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Can we allow Dan to
Sure.
speak since, do you care? Because you're actually in all of those discussions. I guess my question, so you want it back in there, right? That 3.03.
Well, we want all, if there's trash in the county that's being collected, we want it taken to the landfill because we maximize the percent. So if it's 5% on the gross receipts, we get 5%. If we've got trash that we're picking up that's leaving the county, we're not capturing 5% on those tons of.
Yeah. So did they, why was it taken back out? I guess it was in there. And then the last time it was taken back out because of that interlocal agreement?
When we removed it from the host agreement, it was at the time that we were talking about having an interlocal agreement between the Fiscal Court and the 109 board for that.
Okay.
And we took it out because we were going to have that interlocal agreement. It really doesn't impact Waste Path either way. It's really a county-wide thing where any waste that is brought to Waste Path landfill, county would get, if it's in county, would get the 5% fee. And they were concerned about having the backup for a second location if there was issues at our landfill. The problem, but that is taken care of in the force majeure paragraph that's in there, in that we have agreed that if they can't come to me, then the cost goes from $23 to, and these are just numbers, but say 23 to 30, then the landfill will reimburse the county for that $7 a ton difference that they're having to pay because they can't come to me. And so it was removed with the understanding that they would bring the trash there. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but Denny Knowles said at the meeting that he was going to write a letter to the landfill in Mayfield, which has a required, even though it may or may not be valid, it has a 90-day notice, I think, of not renewing the agreement. And so he was to write a letter to them to cancel that agreement.
I think it's important too, at that time, they thought that this was an actual binding agreement. That's why the interlocal agreement was discussed. But I got this when I sat down with the chairman of the district, the 109 district, and I read through this. I mean, it doesn't say anywhere on here the 109 district. It says Marsh County, so it's got the county, and then the signature on this is not the chairman of the board. So we asked for the minutes to show where the board actually approved this agreement, and to date, we haven't received anything. And then Jason, counsel with the bidding process, Waste Path was the only one that bid. So the interlocal agreement, we don't need an interlocal agreement, which goes back to if there's any trash collected in the county by the 109, I mean, we want that trash taken to the landfill so that we can capture that 5%.
Are you referring to Danny Newton?
Yes.
Signing this? So he's not the current chair?
No, he's talking about
No.
Graves.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
no, I'm talking about 2012.
Okay.
2012, the individual that signed this was not a board member. He was, I think he was a supervisor. He wasn't
Oh, for us. I thought you were talking about Graves County. You're saying on our behalf.
Our 109.
Oh, okay. Okay, I thought you were talking about,
2012, not this one.
That
Yeah, I
signed the
know,
agreement with Graves County.
but I'm saying.
Correct.
I
Okay.
thought you were talking about Graves County didn't.
Well, Graves.
You're saying we didn't properly
Yeah,
execute
the
it.
109, the person that signed this.
I got you.
Supervisor.
Gotcha. Okay.
I guess where this is, just so that you understand, they thought that this agreement, the way it reads, is that they would be breaching their agreement. And then an interlocal agreement with the 109 and the county, that's where the interlocal agreement came into play. But we don't need an interlocal agreement.
I attended that 109 board meeting, and Denny stated there were a lot of issues with that contract. He didn't feel there'd be any problem with it.
So, I mean, this is really, I think the bid process, I guess would say nullify this anyways. So this is,
Assuming it was even valid to begin with,
yeah,
which is not a given.
yeah. The key is that, again, the county's position, I know I've talked with Dan on this as well, there's several partners in this agreement, if you will. Where the county's interest comes in is, we're going from 2% to 5% for in-county waste. If we've got waste that's not even coming to the landfill, then that affects us. We don't capture the fee off of that, those tons. Our interest should be that if we're collecting it through the 109 district, then we should be delivering it to Waste Path so that we get that 5%. And then we can take those funds and put towards the three items that I identified that are why we can put that fee in place.
Right. We also agreed in this host agreement that the 5%, in the past, we've been charging the 109 board the 2%, collecting the 2%, and then we would turn around and remit that back to Fiscal Court. In this host agreement, we have agreed that we will not charge the 109 board that fee. We will just remit it on total gross tons. So the 109 board is not swapping money like it had been under previous ordinance, so forth. So
Do we know what the gross total tons, I think we have talked about as far as the 109, what they take to the waste path?
we've been receiving approximately 10,000 tons annually, and then whatever they have been sending to the Mayfield facility, I'm understanding was about 200 tons a month, so.
So 10,000 tons currently with 2%. That gives you an idea. If they're not,
That's what's generated by the 109 board.
Yeah, he's saying 10,000 is the entire, right? Are you saying by the 109? Or are you saying,
The 10,000 tons is what is collected at the transfer stations by
Yeah.
the 109 board.
right?
And brought to
We're talking about
brought to my landfill. And then the other has been going, which is about 200 tons.
Less than 200 tons, say. 200 is the max, right?
They figured,
Supposed to be the minimum.
according to what they told me, it was approximately $50,000 that they've been paying to the other landfill a year in their budget.
so if they're not being charged, and then you're not charging the 109 district, and then the fee is not being charged to the landfill. 2% fee is not being charged to landfill. Is that what you were saying?
I'm saying the 2%, what we've been doing is we charge the 109 board, if their price per ton is $23, then they're actually paying $23 plus $1.75. It goes to the state plus 2%, which then in turn we remit back to you all, to the fiscal court. And then in this agreement, what we agreed with them was that we would no longer charge them that host fee, that we would just remit it straight to the fiscal court without them having that expense at the 109 board.
So the 5%, the landfill will remit to the fiscal court, but not charge the 109 district.
Right, correct.
What section is that again? Do you know? So that they can read that.
Section 5.03, Judge. Under host fee, Section 5. Refuge district shall not pay the host fee imposed by Section 5.01 for solid waste delivered by the refuge district to the landfill for disposal.
Where do you have that the landfill will pay the 5% on that tonnage?
It's actually in 5.01.
5.01.
First bullet point, 5% of gross receipts of the landfill for all solid waste originating within the county.
So you guys got that? Okay. So I mean, what I see in this is that we want to capture all the waste in the county, and technically, we're not capturing. There's some other waste in the county that we could be capturing, but we want to capture all the waste so that we can maximize this 5%.
So do we know if that's going to be an issue with the 109 board? If we,
I don't know.
Chairman?
I don't know. I mean, at this point, they're 503, they're not paying the, would be, if this is approved, 5%, correct? That's what we just discussed. They're not paying the 5%. And if Section 303 is put back in, that protects us, because then all waste that they collect should go to the landfill, and that would be consistent with what was bid. So I don't know if they did have a problem. I don't know what they would have a problem with. Do you know, Dan?
Their main problem was that they just needed a way to take waste outside the county if it was necessary to be taken outside the county. That's what they needed, that removed, as I understood it, with the board.
But they can go out of county if they can't come to you, which the force majeure that you had talked
You
about.
can't just decide to take it over
Right.
there, but if I can't take it for some reason, if can't get in the landfill because back in the spring, the road going up to the landfill flooded because of the high water, and I can't provide another way in. There was an issue in the past with the roads being muddy and so forth, and we were having to hook on to the trucks to pull them
Right.
up into the landfill, and I don't blame them. There was many times I called Troy English and said, don't come, it's too muddy, too wet, we'll tear your trucks up, getting them up in the landfill. And at that point, we would have to suffer the additional cost of whatever it is that they can't bring to us.
Right.
So it really does, if the board agrees to bring it all to me and brings it all to me, the outlets are there for them to have to take trash in an emergency situation.
Right, and within an emergency situation, you're gonna have to cover that cost.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't really see where, to the question as far as the board having a problem with that, I don't see why they would have a problem if they know, outside of an emergency, it's covered in the agreement.
Right.
Your understanding is that they intend to take everything to
It's their
you.
intentions at this
Yeah.
point, yes. Mhm.
That's
Based
what the
on-
board
based
said.
on
They
the
were just
request.
concerned about access. They referred to what Mr. Sills said about conditions, getting the trucks in and out of there a time or two.
And the force majeure or whatever takes care of that.
Yeah, if I can't do it, yeah.
So,
You men- You mentioned a while ago, Judge, the fact that the 5 1/4 could go to 6 1/4, and that is correct by statute. The reason that we, the landfill, want it in there at 5 1/4, a majority of our waste comes from outside the county because of the transfer stations that are inside the county. So our revenue there, and if we go much higher on the host agreement fees outside the county, I'm competing in Graves County and Callaway County and so forth, so it pushes me up to a higher level of, and I'm beginning to become non-competitive out in those areas as far as to recover that cost that I'm having to pay to the county. So that's the reason why we put it in at the 5 1/4 rather than the maximum 6 1/4.
What was it prior?
prior, outside county, our ordinance just has 2%.
It's been 2%
2%
across the
since-
board ever since I've
for
been in
both.
business.
94,
back
I
in
believe.
So,
01, yeah. we
so we're
paid
going from 2 to 5 1/4.
Yeah, so I mean, we, in the statutory requirement, these numbers have been there since,
Yeah.
94. So we really haven't been capturing the maximum amount that we could have been capturing over the past 24 years.
But it's still substantially higher than what we were.
Oh, well, the 2% is what we have right now.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
on both of them, it's substantially higher.
Yeah,
I mean-
everything's been flat 2% across the board up until now.
I mean, that 1%, is basically $30,000. You know, I think in the position for the county, we've been collecting 2%. I don't know why. I can't speak for the county, why that ordinance just states 2%. It doesn't have it broken out for what it could be, what we could have been collecting. I think the last host agreement was expired in what, 94?
94, something like
yeah.
that, yeah.
But, 2%, if we'd have just been capturing half of that, 5%, you know. So all those years, we've really, I would say that the landfill has benefited from that 2%, when we actually could have had, 5% or 6.25%.
We basically have been adding that on as just a 2% additional environmental fee, and then we pass that on to the county. We've not really put any money in our pocket relative to that. We just pass it through.
Right.
We add it to the,
Well,
to the invoice as a separate line item, and then we turn around and remit it to the county, and that's, so.
Well, I think what folks in the county need to understand if they're running a business is that, and jump in if I'm getting into some legal waters here, but, you know, if you're a business owner and you're dealing with an agency that's in the business of a landfill waste, and you're not dealing with waste path, that trash that leaves our county, we don't capture any of it. That goes back into our roads, goes back into cleaning our right-of-ways, and a hazmat response. You know, I would encourage governments and in county, the city governments and businesses in our community to look at waste path, because you get a return on the trash that goes to landfill. If they're collecting their trash and they're sending it to your competitors outside of this county, we're not capturing anything. And, you know, the same statutory requirement where you're running the same equipment on our roadways, these businesses are running the same equipment on our roadways. They're coming into our county, picking up trash, leaving our county. We still have to maintain the roads. We still have to clean up our right-of-ways. And, you know, if there's obviously a hazmat issue at the landfill, we would have to have an immediate response. But my point is that I don't think folks in the community understand the benefit of doing business with the landfill, because monies come back to the county. And if we can capture those monies, then we put those monies back into the services that we're supposed to. I think that that's where, you know, you would benefit. I don't know how many businesses in the community are doing business with collecting trash, but I think there's an educational position here that we should at least discuss it to get folks to understand, you know, in this process, the county is in a position to get a return so that we can put back into our community. And if we're not, you know, educating those folks in our community of that process, then there's monies that we're losing.
I agree with you, but I would say also I'm comfortable with if they've negotiated that 5 1/4. I understand where he's coming from too, where if he feels like competitively that is going to cost him business outside the county, then if we are trying to capture another 1% and we end up hurting we could potentially end up hurting ourselves in the end by receiving less trash from outside the county because of contracts that he's losing to outside vendors. True? I mean, I know that's difficult, you know, to a certain extent. We're having to put our trust in that that's the case, because I'm not in that bidding process outside of the county. But I can see where at a certain point, even though the legislature says, hey, you can get 6 1/4, that doesn't mean that that's the fair and equitable rate that we need. I feel like if we're going from 2 to 5 1/4, we're substantially increasing that.
Well, good with that also.
And I think that, you know, for a business like the landfill who's wanting to expand, I'm going to look at the roads that we have in our county, the amount of money it's going to take to put back into our roads, those 3 things that we are required to maintain, even the hazmat response. You know, I've got to look at that. The business, you've got competition right now. There's competition in this county with waste path. I mean, that's not going to go away. There's competition that actually are in other states. So it's a multi-state business that's competing against, waste path. But for the county, what we need to be focused on, in my opinion, is if we've got roads that need to be maintained, and this is an avenue for us to collect monies to maintain those roads, then we have to look at that. Since '94, it's been 2%. In all those years, we haven't utilized an increase. That's 2% for waste in county and 2% for waste out of county. So in this agreement, if you go back and look, we went to amend our current ordinance last year. And basically it didn't pass. It didn't get done. And to date, with those numbers, I mean, we've lost over close to $100,000. $100,000 on road projects is huge. I mean, that's what we have to look at. The ability for the county to create revenue, and as you know, most of, just like the sales tax, a lot of people see the sales tax, they think that the county gets that money. We do not get that money. That goes to the state. So here's an area where locally we have a landfill that's in our community that's doing business, and the statute does give us this opportunity to increase the collection fee. You know, that's something that we should definitely look at. Is it the price of business? Yes, it is. I don't think that $30,000 is going to affect. And when we're talking about trash out of county, and I know that in the discussion, the permit, did the landfill reduce the number of states that they're collecting?
We're in the process of doing that, yes, we will.
Okay. So I mean, that was something that was discussed. There wasn't too much objection, to my knowledge, as far as some of those states that were on the permit. So I mean, the reduction of those states where you're going to be bringing in trash in our community, I think that a 1% increase on this, sure, I mean, we can speculate all day, but I think for the county's position, we've got quite a bit of roads to pave. And again, I'll say it again, those businesses that he's competing with are already in our county, riding up and down our roads. And they got the same equipment that's going up and down our roads, but because of the operation that WastePath is in our county, this allows us to collect. So I disagree with that. I think
But-
6 1/4. And in talking with other landfills across the state that work in this environment, they agree that 6 1/4 is a minimum. Go ahead, Monty.
Well,
You got the, is it McFarland? You got those photos?
Yeah.
I just want to show, I mean, I've shown you all these photos. I just want to show you one road that it's a county, depending on where you're at on that road, it's a county or a city road. But this is the shape that this road is in. And this is just one example of trying to maintain these roads. Where this really became an issue was when the bridge went out on Calvert City Road. The folks that did live down there, you know, came to my office because they had to take a different route. And traveling on this road, obviously, and you guys have seen this, but I mean, the folks need to see some of the conditions of our roads. And this is an opportunity to where we can capture some funds to put back into our roads. Well, y'all have seen, did y'all get the photos of the
I don't need
McFarland?
photos. I
You
go out there
yeah, you've
all the
you've
time
driven
for
down
my-
it.
Yeah.
I think that the last meeting that I remember attending, that road, because of the bridge, was about a $3.5 million, 3.2 or $3.5 million cost to get that road up to where it should be. And I know Dan and I have talked about this, Waste Path uses that road, especially when the railroad cars are blocking the roadway. But that's just my opinion. I think that 30,000 annually with that 1%, the county's leaving on the table, and I can't justify leaving $30,000 on the table, potentially, because I know the gross receipts. They're expanding. They may have more projects coming out of these states. I don't know, but I don't think.
That's not it. That's not what McFarland looks like. Is it?
I think those were, those aren't the photos, recent photos. But you get my point. I know you guys have seen this road.
We recently quit using that road because residents who are over in the old Calvert Drive, once you hit the end of McFarland and swing back to the right to get out onto 62, they have, residents in there have complained about trucks coming through there. And so we've tried to defer our drivers. Now, there are other trucks that come through there, not necessarily waste trucks, but there are other trucks that come through that road. Get back over on the Shark Cow in that direction. So.
And two, I'll bring this up. Wendy and I have sat down over the past, we've discussed this over the past several years. We've got roads in our community that are private roads. Cary Landing is one where, you've got folks that live back in that location. In the first portion of that road, they were trying to petition to bring that into the county maintenance system. You had folks that literally moved out of that subdivision because of the roadways. But we've got to do something about our road systems where we have subdivisions. And Monty, I know you, where you used to live, I think you and I have talked about this as well. We've got to figure out a way to put a better ordinance in place to where as we bring roads into the county maintenance system that we can have a plan to fund bringing these roads into the county maintenance system. I've driven out and around the county. There's some subdivisions in our community that are prime real estate, but the roads are horrible. And these are private roads. And the folks that are there, they want the county to take these roads in, but because of the different methods and how that can be done, they don't have the funds or the resources to bring these roads into our county maintenance system. And we're actually looking at trying to put something in place where if there's a developer that comes into the county and develops a subdivision, that they build that road up to the minimum standards that the county will accept. The road department will inspect, and then that road is brought into the county maintenance system. But there are several roads out there. That's probably one of the biggest complaints I get is our roads. And it's not going to be an easy task, but I think that we're at a point where we need to put a plan in place that we can at least say, you know, over X amount of years, we will try to bring these roads into the county maintenance system. The benefit of that is those properties that are out there that, you know, you guys are in real estate. If there's a well-maintained road with that property, it's got a better chance to sell than some of the conditions of these roads that are in. And obviously, we want folks to move to our area because it benefits us in many ways. And a good road is just the first start in making that happen. So I think I've made it clear where I stand on this. So that's just my opinion. I know we've discussed it.
So, I mean, is there a way to do this jointly and not have to go back and forth again like that? I mean, or we're gonna be another, that's what concerns me, is that we're gonna be another 2 or 3 months down the road. We send this back with these revisions, and then they won't do it, and none of us are there. I mean, obviously, we can't all go unless we're doing a joint meeting, but I'm
Can we call
I'm
joint
so
meeting?
ready to put this thing to bed.
Sure,
I know
sure.
you are too, I get it,
I'm-
but, I mean,
Why-
how are we gonna do this if it just keeps going back and forth?
I support this the way it's signed by the 109 board and Mr. Sills. I attended the meeting and they voted unanimously on it. I know they worked on it tirelessly for a long time. And I know also it's costing us several $1,000s a month. The difference in the 2% and the 3 and the 3 1/4 for every day that goes by that we don't have an agreement.
The ordinance that the fiscal court attempted to mend in regards to where we have been losing monies, you're exactly right. It's close to $100,000 that we've lost. And seeing that we're leaving 1% on the table, which is another $30,000, knowing that we've got several millions of dollars that we're going to have to be looking at moving forward with our road infrastructure. I don't see where, when we amended that ordinance to capture the maximum percentages that we could capture, that decision from the 109 to then the elected officials cost us $100,000. And I don't see, the 5 1/4, from what I understand, is more so for waste path. Is that correct? To the 6 1/4, not the 109. So it's not so much the 109, it would be waste path.
Year and a half ago. And the 5 1/4, like I say, keeps us from being totally uncompetitive outside of Marshall County, where most of the trash that waste path hauls comes from. And that was the reason why we wanted the 5 1/4% in there for out of county to be competitive. Because we're competing with other haulers outside the county. And of course, somewhat inside the county because, like I say, they're not having to pay Marshall County the 5%. Now, they may be paying Graves County 5% if they're hauling it over there, but I know one of the haulers is hauling it all the way to Tennessee, and I don't know what they pay in Tennessee. That is in picking up trash inside the county. Right here in the city of Benton, to be exact.
Yes. And I think we got a rough estimate of what the tonnage is that's leaving. Do you remember what that was? Was it 6,000 annually?
I think so, at least, yeah.
Yeah. So if 10,000 is roughly 50 grand, so 6,000 is a little over $25,000. To me, and I think that's where that educational piece, notifying the businesses and even the city governments that do business, that they're taking their trash out of the county, that's where you're losing monies, in my opinion. We're definitely losing monies.
By explaining to them the portion of that was coming back to the county. And
Sure.
they did not know that, was not aware of that. But when I told them that, they.
Well, and to me, that's a perfect opportunity for the fiscal court to do an interlocal agreement with the city government to where those monies come in. If it's $6,000, I mean, you're talking annually, again, rough numbers, $25,000 that could be remitted back to the city government for maintenance on their roads. We keep the monies in the county. And that could be a possibility. But that's obviously under the 5%, the 5.25. How much tons of trash coming outside of the county is coming into the landfill?
I'd say close to 200 tons a month, probably.
200 a month? Well, again, I mean, that's my opinion on it. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Is there any further discussion on the host agreement? Comments from anybody? What kind of actions does the court want to take?
I'll make a motion to accept the host agreement signed by the 109 board and Mr. Sills.
Second.
I want to see it have that 303 back in, but.
With the motion on the table, there's no second. Does the commissioner want to change his motion, or?
I was trying to find the 3.03 back on here.
I'll read it to you. It's going to be on the August or May 20th, 2019, 303. Beginning on the effective date, the refuse district shall deliver all solid waste collected by the refuse district to the landfill for disposal. That's the one that we were talking about. The force majeure covers that if they have to take trash to outside the county to another landfill.
What was one, Mr. Sills, that had in there that if it had to go out of county? Do you recall right off? Yes, sir.
3.03.
You're asking which date?
No,
What are you looking for?
in the current host agreement, the clause that stated any that had to go anywhere other than your facility, that you would reimburse the difference, basically.
Oh, that was in 5 point, well, it's a 3.02, Kevin.
Jason, is that in any way, if we had that 3.03 back, is that going to contradict with that 3.02?
Well, what I would suggest at this point is if absent an agreement from the court to accept it as is, I think the only way that this is going to get resolved is through a joint meeting to discuss it with the 109 board.
Say that again?
I don't think that we're going to, unless the court approves it as is today, I don't think we're going to reach an agreement without a joint meeting. Because if we send it back, then they send it back, and then and it's just we're in a ping pong match that has no end. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but I think we identified that agreement is not a standing agreement. That was, when I met with the chairman, that was.
Right, but he's talking about making a change to this host agreement. I'm not talking about the.
Well, sure, but I think when we met, the chairman went and put that on the agenda to vote for without, I was supposed to confirm that was a standing or non-standing agreement. So they voted before we confirmed that it was a standing agreement. We identified it after they had voted on it. So I don't think that the standing agreement is an issue. The 303 originally was an issue, but it's not an issue. I don't see why they would not object to it.
Well, but you're talking about a difference of the 5.25 and a 6.25 too.
No, his motion,
But there
Monty's
was-
wanting 303
But he,
added.
I mean, the 5.25 didn't get a second though.
No, he made a motion as is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't get a second.
It hasn't received the second, but Monty says that if the 303 goes in, I asked him if he wanted to amend his motion and got no response.
That's when I
So-
asked him, is that going to contradict with 302? Because it refers to it having to go out of the county. I don't want them, us, whoever the case may be, to get in a situation if we were not able to deliver there to Waste Path for any reason that we wouldn't have other options. I understand what we're trying to accomplish here and capture it all in the county, but we also can't foresee the future either. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Found it?
Yeah, that's on here.
Well, I mean, I do think there's a little bit of contradictory language there, because it says that during the term of this host agreement, the landfill is unable or unwilling to dispose in the landfill. And then it says in 303, beginning on the effective date, the refuse district shall deliver all solid waste collected by the refuge to the landfill. So, I mean, the unwilling part, I think that probably should be taken out. But if that's the intent of the 109 board, then 303 just reflects that intent.
If I'm not mistaken, that was put in by Waste Path's attorney, correct? 303. Dennis put that in, 303.
The 109. Or you're saying, no, Dennis is yours too. Forget about that. Dennis and Denny. Yeah. Couldn't y'all have gotten somebody named John so that this wouldn't be as confusing?
So you're saying, Jason, we're better off having a joint meeting?
Well, I mean, you can do it one of two ways. You can approve this subject to 303 being put back in there, send it back to them and see if they approve it. Hoping that they do, or you can have a joint meeting and discuss it.
So that 303 does not prevent them from taking that wherever if they weren't able to access or Waste Path wasn't able to accept, correct?
No. Yeah. I mean, you would construe those provisions together. So, I mean, you've got a general intent, but then you've got an exception if there's an emergency or a can't do force majeure. Okay.
If we put the 303 back in there, is that going to be a complicated process for the board and Mr. Seals? Are they going to have to start over on this thing or anything, or can they vote simply to accept that amendment?
Yeah, I think they just vote to accept or reject at that point.
I'll amend the motion to include 303.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those. All those against.
No,
I'm gonna have to say no, because I can't leave $30,000 on the table.
I'd like to see us all meeting a joint meeting. Been saying that for a while.
All right, what dates do y'all have that you want to meet?
Can we meet at their next regular scheduled board meeting? Can we do that?
We can do that. Does anybody know when that is? Second Tuesday.
That'd be Tuesday.
9 a.m.?
9 a.m. next week.
I suppose they have to agree also, right?
I'll,
I mean, we call ours
I'll
and then
send Danny a
That's their
message.
regular meeting.
That's their regular
they.
meeting.
Oh, that's
We're having
true.
a special meeting with them.
Yeah. I'll just call Danny and tell him
Let us in.
we'll be there 9 a.m. next Tuesday. All right. We'll move on to, you should have the item B under new business. I'm sorry, item A under personnel. Jonathan, you want to get up and talk about the new position, new hire?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank y'all for having us. Recently, we lost personnel at the sanitation district. Erskine Estern, he resigned his position, so it left us a man short. So we conducted an interview process, put out requests for applications and resumes be submitted in. And last week, with the help of Brad, we sat down and did an interview panel. We interviewed 5. 4 of the 5 showed up that we selected for an interview. Talked it over with Randy and the board, and they have decided to move, I believe, for William Keeling to be hired. Coming in, starting in, he's been employed at Briggs. He brings a wealth of background with controls, working on maintenance systems there in Briggs and Stratton, so he'll be bringing his experience to the sanitation district. Met with him, super good person, easy to talk to. Does have a lot of knowledge in electrical background as well.
All right. Does anybody got any questions? I think,
Did we, I think we discussed pay rate, but do you want to state that pay rate for their,
Yeah, I can. We discussed it, and just with his background and the experience he's bringing, starting pay would be, I think, what Randy and them discussed was $15.50 an hour. Because he does have a lot of experience in automated controls, PLCs, a lot of automation that goes on in the Briggs. He does have experience on.
That position's been underpaid for a while.
Yes, it has. Dealing with what you got to deal with working in the sanitation district, and we kind of outlined everything that would have to be included in job duties, and he was okay with it.
I know we discussed too, where this falls, and it's consistent with our pay scale and how we've implemented that category and pay scale within our admin code since this is a county employee. I will say, and I discussed this with Linda and John, this will have to have a budget amendment at some point to take into account that increase from what the previous employee's making to this one. So just wanted to put that out there, not saying that's going to be today, but that'll be something that'll have to be on an agenda for another item.
Are you guys to the point now of making your payroll, do you know?
It's been a slow-going process. We've actually been doing very well. I think there was a few changes and stuff like that that they needed, I think, to work out with you and Erica as far as, I think, Lindell's side of it. But for the most part, as we're getting more customers put on, we're actually able to put a little bit more back into the bank. When I first started, we were somewhere in the neighborhood that had about a running balance of about $50 in the banking account. And that's just because of all the maintenance and upgrades that we've had to do. Since then, we've actually been able to put anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000 back into the bank. And so that's actually going towards continuing maintenance and upkeep. And I think they're coming ahead on paying Lindell's portion of the salary for the district.
Very good.
We're actually able to go in, when they have the board meeting, make a motion to pay all the bills, and all the bills are paid. We're actually able to keep a running balance in our checking account. And working on getting a more stabilized budget as more and more income comes into the district. Once we see where we're operating at after this year and getting new people tied on, we can have a more in-depth budget and what our funds are going to be looking like. And then we can present that and show the court where we started at and where we are at to that date. The district is moving great, moving forward. I can kind of give y'all an update of what's going on in the district if you like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just kind of let y'all know all new lift stations in Draftonville are up and running. The one on 641 in Steeplechase. Matter of fact, Steeplechase which is tied on to the district now. It's been great. We're seeing an increase in flow coming into the plant. New Merco's done great as far as everything goes. The generators are up and running really, really well. There's just been a few other issues going on at the plant. The new PLC has been installed that we talked about for years. We worked with Rick's Electric, and a new PLC was installed at the plant. And a matter of fact, I've been sitting here watching it. I can actually run our plant in Draftonville from my cell phone, and Lindell can too. It brings up and shows everything that we're able to do. We can make changes, adjust flow, warnings will be sent to us, and that last bit of warnings and notifications being sent out to the operators cleared up our last notice of violation with the state. So as of right now, pending in any new inspections, we are in 100% compliance and up to date on all of our notices of violations.
And I want to hit home on that because that was one of the first things when we started this, that action plan. I remember when Jeff and I drove to Department of Water with hat in hand, telling them that we had a problem and we were going to fix it. That action plan, even though they smacked us on the hand and fined us, we actually put that plan in place, and this was the last known piece of that action plan. So it's good to see a project from the start to the finish. And I think Randy was telling me that a month or two now that you guys are actually starting to get the revenue to pay the bills.
We're actually starting getting up, and the problem was with our old system that we had in place. After a busy weekend in Draftonville, all the biology at the plant was cleared off. That's why everybody noticed the smell, that horrible smell that was in Draftonville. The new system, it's running like it should. The process is actually able to stay up and running. We've had it several weekends now, and instead of biology being died off, the biology is actually to stay alive, and we're seeing clear. I can actually bring in a jar of crystal clear water that's actually going out of the plant. So we are within our permit guidelines. We're staying within KPDDS limits. And that's a big step for Draftonville to be actually able to work in an automated system and stay where it's supposed to, because used to it would not be able to do that.
Is that new bar screen in?
The new bar screen is also in place, and we have seen a reduction in our solids, baby wipes, and other materials coming into the plant. Since that's been put into place, we've actually broke down all the waste pumps on all the SBR reactors and started cleaning them, and actually have had to replace them because all the bearings were burnt out of them. We've actually got all them replaced, and the motive pumps are next, which is the pumps that actually move the sludge on the bottom. We're actually going to start tearing them down and getting them sent in to actually be, we're doing one at a time to keep at least 2 reactors online at all times. Eventually, we may have to drain the tanks and get in there and actually clean what's left of it out, but we're not seeing any paper products or towels going out like we were seeing. So the bar screen being put in is we're actually seeing a great positive success rate with that and what's actually being taken out of the collection system. It's great. If y'all haven't been down to the plant here lately, I'd love to have y'all and kind of show you everything. If y'all remember what the cabinet used to look like where the PLC was maintained, there was gobs of wires everywhere in there. Rick's Electric came in, removed every bit of it. Everything is properly tagged and located now. Matter of fact, they pulled out about a 4-inch bundle worth of cable that wasn't hooked up to anything. It was just in there. So everything is clean and organized now. It's labeled. If we go in there and we look for what wire R103 does, it actually says what it does, where it goes to, how we test it, and what we do with it. They've done a great job in installing this system.
All right.
If y'all have any further questions? Just give you a quick Aurora. Let's let you know that the old system up there, the old plant, we've had a few mishaps with it, but it is up and running. just going to stress again, probably within the next few years, we may be having to look at a replacement for that plant because it is an older facility. Everything is corroded on it. All the valves are starting to rust off and fall off. But we're still operating well within our permits. That's just something, food for thought for y'all to be looking in future budget development of how we can put that project in line somewhere.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
appreciate it, John.
Thank you.
What was that, 1550 from 10, what was the increase from 10? Yeah, just so that the court knows, that 1550 was an increase from $10 an hour that was budgeted, so. But we would need a motion on Mr. Keeling.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Then the treasurer's office, do you want to talk on that, Erica?
I have an hourly rate increase for our part-time employee, Madison Holland. My request is to change her pay from $9 an hour to $11 an hour.
And I believe that's going to come from the OTA budgeted line. So we need a motion on.
Move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B, the 911 consulting service proposal. This is, get a copy of this. This is Mall. Actually, they are in the business of control center and design. It's a German company. One of the things that we're having is twice now I've been on the road coming back from a conference or from Frankfurt, and I'm getting phone calls on issues that either engineers or somebody, the architect, is wanting technical information on. And I think we're at that point where we need an actual project manager to handle and field those calls. So this is the proposed agreement with Mall to come in and actually handle those calls that come in and deal with the contractors and subcontractors and the engineers on what actually is being built there at the 911 center. But you should have gotten this one Friday. We send that out Friday. Has anybody got any questions on it? Jason did read it. You should see he's made 2 additions, or 1 addition, and he lined through some of the language. They're going to send that to their legal team. But if the court were to approve this, it would be with the contingency of those changes that council
moved.
recommended. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item C, payment of the bills.
Y'all want to pay the bills this month, or
Go
you want
ahead.
me to? Motion to pay the bills.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We don't need to go into executive session. I think I emailed y'all the opioid update, so we just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.